right. Happy Sunday, guys. Nice to see everybody again. Mr. Heath, Painting Troll, welcome. Yeah, it's a good day. Been a busy hobby weekend for me. I was able to finish up the Malifaux commission I was working on. The main thing I had to do yesterday was to make all the bases. And so I went with this sort of light birch look to the wood. So all the bases look like that. So give you a little bit of a view on some of these. So this is the Chorophene Duet. So they can actually demagnetize from this base, because one of their special rules is the ability to either be a duet together, and they're more powerful, or they can go on their own bases and go off and do their own thing. Some of the named characters put on these more special decorative wood bases, kind of more like a decorative medallion or something you would see. So there's Colette, the master for the group. I think I'm not sure if I showed much on the ice dancers the last time I was on stream, but they were the last models to finish up. So I like how they came out. They definitely have a different look, but they're kind of they have ice magic and stuff, so with frozen look to them. Well, I'm pretty happy with how the whole crew came out, and I painted those for a guy, so I should be shipping those out to him this week. But thanks, Painting Troll, I appreciate that. But today we're not going to be working on those. We are going to be continuing to work on Allie. Again, she's based on the character from the Resident Evil movies. So last time we finished up her t-shirt. I think we did some shading on her leggings, and we did the base coat and the striping on the jeans for that denim look. So we're gonna work on her shirt and her this shirt that you can see from the back and her denim today. That's gonna be the main focal points. Thanks, Mr. Heath. And as I said last time, I'd kind of like to do something like this on her back, on the back of her shirt, and then do it like fade it in a little bit so it's like a really old shirt with that logo on there. So I went ahead and did some guidelines. These are really good to help you get the shape to be the right size and more uniform when you're doing the model. And so what I'm going to first start off doing is I want to choose a color that's going to show up okay, but it's going to be pretty easy to paint over. Yeah, that would be good. And I have not used this paint before, so I need to pierce the top of it. Sorry, I'm sometimes not totally ready to go right at 2 o'clock and don't have everything set up. As I've said before, I usually go rock climbing right before this. And sometimes it's a little tricky to get back here, get lunch, get cleaned up, and have everything ready to go. So I had intended to spend a little time getting prepped for today's session, but it didn't really happen. I basically got right out of the shower and was setting up my computer. It was good. My partner had been sick for about a week, and so we go 3 times a week, and he got sick right after one of the times we went, so we missed 3 straight sessions. So we ended up, it was about 9 or 10 days between rock climbs when we went this last Tuesday, and we could definitely feel it. We were dragging quite a bit. We didn't have our legs underneath us, so to speak, on that night. So then Friday, things felt a little better, and of course, being a couple of guys who are denying how old they're getting, we pushed it really, really hard on Friday night. And so this morning we took it a little bit easier. I think we probably did fewer climbs than normal and didn't do so many back-to-back. We were feeling the Friday workout for sure. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of put out a guide for where I'm going to put the star. So right now I split up the star into 4. It's essentially a square, a 4x4 square. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a square, roughly where I want that star. So I'm first just kind of plotting points till visually it looks like a square. It might be a little squat, but we'll go with it. Now I'm just doing this in a light gray. It's something that I want to be able to see on the back of her shirt, but I want to be able to paint over very easily. And the easiest way to do this, and why I like to break the sections into even numbers for sure, but multiples of 2 is really good, because you can just keep subdividing, and it's visually easier for your eyes to sort of make that look right, as opposed to if you had to break it into thirds or something. It's a little harder to eyeball where a third goes. It's pretty easy to see where half is. Okay. Hey Lane Course, how's it going? Coming to you from far, far away. All right, so we've got the guiding lines for our star symbol, and I'll worry about the U.S. Army part in a minute. So now the question is, should we do this in should we do the star symbol kind of like this, where it's a light color on a dark background, or should we make the star symbol more dark, like it's going to be a faded black or a faded dark blue on the shirt? What do you guys think? Go with the lighter. Trying to decide if I made that line crooked or if she's just standing sort of crooked. She's got her hips cocked. Hey, Z-Bugs. Thanks. Okay, well, we'll go with the lighter then. I'm just kind of sketching out where the letters are going to go. About how tall they're going to be. Okay, so let's see. So I'm going to glaze over this a lot with the reds. I want to go lighter, but I don't want it to be like a bright white color. Yeah, I think you're right, Mr. Heath. So I'm going to use Thar Brown. So this is not a true white, as you can see, but you know, I want this to be, well, I'm actually going to, like I said, I'm going to glaze over this some. Do I want to go this dark to start with? Decisions. Maybe I'll go Mojave White instead. So still a little off-white, but not quite as dark as that. And we'll see. I might regret this, but. Yeah, exactly. When in doubt, ask the wife, the color expert. All right, sorry, I made a little mess there. Now, as you'll often see me do, you know, I get my paint pretty thin. This is no exception. Sometimes, like with tattoos and things, I don't necessarily want to go over them twice because the design gets pretty intricate and I don't want to screw it up. I don't really like using real metallics either, Painting Troll, but mine has to do more with, I just like to have the consistent finish. I think metallics, like my vision is that when I'm painting models, I almost want them to look like more like their animations, you know, or you know, pieces of art or something like that. And having the real metallic look on them just always, it seems to clash with that objective. So I tend to like the non-metallic metal, although I don't always do it true to form in terms of like real true reflections and stuff. Sometimes I basically just use grays and yellows. All right. So it appears what I'm going to do is I'm essentially going to do these as triangles. You know, thinking about connecting up the bottom, isosceles triangles. So the base of this triangle is roughly at the quartile marks and about halfway down that. So let's place the dots. So right about there is where that triangle is going to end. And it starts about halfway up the top quartile box. About right there. Got a bunch of cat hair in my paint. Hold on. All right. Stuff just floats around and it seems to congregate on my painting table. right, and with the stars, we want everything to be symmetric, so we're going to try to mirror that sort of turned. Let's see. So this one is going to start about right there. Anyway, I kind of was saying before, sometimes with tattoos and really intricate designs, I keep a thickness of the paint so that I don't necessarily have to do multiple coats. I'm not as worried about that on a design like this for two reasons. One is I'm kind of sketching out a shape that's a little tricky to get symmetric, and so I want to make sure that I get the shape right before I get the paint too thick on here. And the other reason is because I'm actually going to use the darker color of the t-shirt to clean up all my edges and make everything a little sharper. So I don't have to worry about, going back and if my lines aren't quite perfect. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Yeah, cat hair does get everywhere. My thing, every night when I go to bed, I always read for about half an hour in bed before I go to sleep. And one of our cats, he's just got a ritual that he always jumps up on the bed when I start reading and just wants to sit on my lap and be pet while I'm reading. And without fail, he jumps up on the bed, and within seconds, like just my book is like covered with static electricity-ish cat hair all over it. And spend the next couple minutes just trying to get that stuff all off my book. He just brings it with him like a cloud, I think. My trusty 000 here, it's like my workhorse brush. I think this one's been going for almost 2 years now, but I can tell it's getting near the end of its life. I have 1 or 2 spares to switch over to, but this one's been so good I'm always afraid that the next one I open up won't be as good, and hold out as long as I can. See you, Z-Bugs. Thanks for stopping by. So yeah, I think the star looks pretty symmetric and good. So what I'm going to do now is, so I don't get things too thick because there's stuff drying in there, I don't want to mess up with the finish. I'm going to start doing the circle that's around it. And I'm actually probably just going to basically do it as a solid circle, and I'll go back in and cut out the little slits there later with the darker color. It's just easier not having to worry about that at the time. And here's where it's also really nice to have that grid guide, because it's really, really difficult to draw circles freehand and get them symmetric. The human hand, as you make the motion, it's just, not really designed to make perfect circles. But you can use the guides to sort of help you along. Again, like I said, I'm going to clean this up later, which allows me to be a little more loose right now. So the average lifespan of a decent brush, if you have like a Winsor & Newton so I really like the Winsor & Newton small brushes. Like to me, their 000s are just, I love them. However, they're so finicky, so susceptible to like a stray hair in the manufacturing process or something. When I order them, I order about 3 of them, and usually 2 of them are pretty good. There's often one that I end up just having to toss out and not use. But I prefer for the slightly larger brushes, I like the Raphael 8404s. So this is my other workhorse brush, the size 1 in that. If you are very careful with them, and by careful I mean, you don't let paint get up into the ferrules and dry. You wash them out with a good brush soap every so often. You don't use them for a lot of rough base coating. So if you're doing something where you need to jab paint down into a crevice, and so like you're jabbing your point down into something, don't use your good brushes because that's really hard on the tips. So things like that. So you basically you use them, for things where you can do the motion correctly, where you're moving, away from the tip. So if you're nice to them, you take care of them. Like I said, I usually get probably 1.5 years or 2 years before I really just can't use them for their purposes anymore, and they go into the crummy brush pile. So they can definitely last for a good while. Now, you may not get that use out of them the very first time you buy good paint brushes, if you're used to handling your brushes a little rough. But yeah, I think I usually get about 1.5 years to 2 years out of them. Now, I notice a difference. I think the good brushes are easier to paint with and easier to achieve good results with. But I actually really didn't start buying the expensive brushes until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So I did many, many years, including years when I won painting competitions and things like that, using the $5 paint brushes from Michaels. Just like not the highest quality brushes. They would only last a couple months before I'd have to toss them. But they'll serve you well. They're not quite as high quality bristles that'll hold up over time. Yeah, definitely. You don't want to spend the money on these brushes if you're not going to take care of them. But sometimes, actually forking out the money for a good brush is what forces you to take care of your brushes. You know, if you have a brush you only spend a couple dollars on, there's just not that much intrinsic motivation to take care of it. You don't really care if you have to replace a $3 brush or a $4 brush. But if you're spending $15 or $20, all right, so I'm gonna leave that alone for a minute. It's pretty good. It's not a perfect circle, but it's pretty good. All right, so let's work on the lettering. So based on how it lines up here, the right side of the A is pretty close to being on center. So again, I'm not going to worry super much on this first pass about doing all the cool little details on the letter. I'm just sort of sketching out where it's going to go. Yeah, that isn't too bad. We obviously have to get them all imported, which tends to drive up the price a little bit. All right, hold on one second. All right, so the next stage here, getting these letters right. This is where things can get a little tricky. And it's going to take some back and forth of working with the off-white color and cleaning it up, redefining some spaces with the off-white color, and so on and so forth, kind of back and forth to get everything right. I'm also going to try a not really brand new technique, brand new to me, I've never tried it, for getting a vintage t-shirt design look later, and we'll see how that goes. I might mess the whole thing up, or it might turn out really cool. So the A is fatter on this side. Flares a little. I might end up having to bust out a brand new 000 this session. This one's, I'm fighting the tip a little bit on it. The paint's also slightly thinner than I usually like to do for this, for doing lettering and things, because I had it thinner for sketching, which makes it trickier. When I'm doing detail work like this, sometimes I have to remind myself to breathe. I stop breathing in the middle of it. All right, one more pass with this color just to get that part a little more solid. All right, we got to start. Now, I got my Warfront paints in the mail the other day, and despite a few hiccups, they certainly served the purpose that I was hoping, which was to get a nice allotment of greens and browns, and I tend to like the more olive green type colors. So I have all of these colors to choose from, and I have not yet decided exactly what color to do her shirt. I know it's kind of hard to see through the bottles. They want to reflect the light. I'm thinking, I think I'm going to start with this color. Yeah, they finally came. They took about 5 weeks to get to me, 5 or 6 weeks. And when they finally got here, there were 8 of the paints that were like dried solid, which was pretty frustrating. So I emailed them and sent them pictures, and I'm assuming they'll replace those. I mean, I was talking back and forth with their customer service person a little bit. And I never got the final confirmation like your order has shipped or anything, but that's a nail polish shaker. The Scale 75 paints, their Warfront line and their Scale Color line are both really thick, and so they will just wreck your elbow and wrist from needing to shake. And I have to go get a cat off the stove. Hold on. I'll shame the troublemaker who is trying to go lick stuff on the stove. But yeah, so I found the nail polish shaker was really, really nice for these paints. Now I don't want to go too thin with this. There is an agitator in there, and it is kind of like a BB. It's a stainless steel ball bearing, but be very, very careful where you get those from. I get mine from MIG, which is an ammo, ammo by MIG is what it's called. But they actually use those or at least used to, put them in their paints when they would send them from the factory. So they're really, really high quality and they don't rust. If you just go to like a hardware store and get chrome plated ball bearings or something like that, they'll rust in a matter of weeks in your paints and they'll ruin them. I had a whole bunch of Vallejo paints when I was in college that I did that with, and I thought I was doing what I should, but no, because I thought the chrome plating was going to help keep them from rusting, but nope, they rusted out and I had to throw out a whole bunch of paints. Yeah, so you got to be careful. I think I've had, I've had ones in these paints for like over a year, the ones from MIG. You can see there's no, usually what you'll see is wherever the ball bearing is sitting for a while, you'll see like a rust spot on the bottle because it'll just start like creating a rust corrosion thing there. And you'll see it mostly in your light colors first, but Like these have been in there for quite some time and there's no rust. So at least for me, they seem to be working. Who knows how many years it'll last before they start to rust, but they seem to be working for me. Some of my paints have glass beads in them, some of the ones that are thinner, but the Scale 75 are just so thick that the little glass beads can't really move through the paint, even in the paint shaker. So you need something a little heavier. Otherwise, I wouldn't put the metal in. I would just make sure I used glass beads. But all right, so I'm going to use this color to start shaping the letters. This is why I want the paint to be a little thicker, at least for right now. And I'm going to start off by just scalping everything. So going across the top and getting everything straight. What's up, Blue? How's it going, Zach? Why are you gonna die? Are you sick? Did you catch the plague that's going around? I had that a few weeks ago. Well, I guess it's more than a few weeks now. Just after Christmas, I caught the flu. It's been going around. It was not fun. Oh. Hey Zach, I've got a 5-headed dragon I just bought. Any chance you want to paint it for me? Yeah, I think this is a little crooked on her back, but I'm not going to fix it now. There's no going back now. Too far along in the process. So I don't know how many of you guys watched my my tips on how to do eyes, and how one of the tricks on eyes was to think about the fact that you're sort of painting the negative space almost. As opposed to actually painting the eyes. You're sort of more painting the stuff that's not eyes. That's a little bit of the trick to get nice lettering is, once you kind of have the basic shape like I have here of the letters, what I'm really doing is I'm painting the part that's not letter. And that, at least for me, tends to be easier to get really crisp lines. So you should start to see, I gotta go back and fix the A. I did a little bit of cut that a little too sharp, but you should be able to see how the letters are starting to look a little more clean and formed. I think it's because most of the sharp lines, you can just sort of lay your paintbrush down. It's really easy to just go on a straight line along the edge of the letter, but to actually paint that straight line with the undercolor is tougher. So anybody other than Zach working on anything right now? Painting along with me today? Mr. Heath, I don't think he's planned that far in advance. I don't know if he ever expects to be done with that dragon. There's definitely a time to just say goodbye to a project that you're working on. Endlessly fiddling with it is not always the best thing. Sounds, Zach, sounds a little bit like what my cue is happening. Yes. Yes, painting water goes here, beer goes over here. Alright, so I'm just going back and continuing to clean up the outlines of the letters. I'm going to go back again with the lighter color with a thicker mixture of it. Touch up from the other direction. Like I said, it's basically just back and forth until either it looks right or I can't stand it anymore, and we just abandon the letters and say they're good enough. They've been shipped to me, Mr. Heath, but they haven't arrived yet. Usually it takes me like 3 months to get something, or 3 weeks to get something from the UK. So I suspect I'll probably see them this week. But it'll be good timing since I was really hoping that I could finish that Malifaux crew up before the Atlantis miniature showed up, which I was able to do. So I was showing them off a little bit maybe before you, before you got on. So I got them all on their bases and ready to ship out. This was a fun commission, but I've been working on these models almost exclusively since late December. So it's nice to get them off my painting table and move on to other things. Well, thanks, Painting Troll. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I can't wait to get them. I really look forward to seeing those models in person. Those dwarfs just have so much character to them. I can't wait to see the models. I've already been going through lots of ideas for painting them. I especially love the female orcs in their line. Just these tough as nails warrior women. I've never seen female dwarfs. I'm not sure how many models I've ever seen that were female dwarfs, but I've never seen female dwarfs portrayed that way before. It's really cool. Are you talking about the models, Painting Troll? That they're going to be larger than I might expect? He's got some size comparisons on the Kickstarter page for them from back when he ran the Kickstarter. He was trying to make sure that he had them in a reasonable approximation to the scale of most other companies. So that if you wanted to use his models in other games, they wouldn't look out of place. They're still 28 millimeter scale, so they're going to be pretty small. Especially compared to Allie here. Got a 54 millimeter scale dwarf from that game Judgment that did a Kickstarter last year. He's going to be fun to paint up at some point. He's kind of leaping off this piece of terrain that comes with him. Oh, gotta catch up on chat. 20 millimeter, 22 millimeters to the top of the head. That's pretty short. Yeah, I'm actually expecting them to be smaller than what most people think when they get them in person. Just gonna make them a little trickier to paint, but they're gonna be fun. The mounted, what do you think of the dwarf bust? The mounted dwarf riders look amazing, especially the mammoth rider and the female dwarf and a saber tooth. I agree. I actually pre-ordered some of the dwarfs, so one of these days I'll get a package with my own dwarfs in them, not just the ones he wants me to paint. And the female dwarf on a saber tooth tiger thing is one of the models I ordered. I'm super excited to get that. The dwarf bust that Josh is painting is really cool. I realized my only beef is not with the paint job at all, but the model itself. I know he was 3D printing it and probably didn't have the ability to just let it print for 2 days or 3 days. I think he said it was already like a 20-hour print job. But the print resolution on it, creates that really rough texture on the model. Makes it really hard to create a nice, clean, consistent paint job. But the expression on the model is awesome. Josh is doing a great job painting it. I just know myself, I'm so picky with mold lines and all sorts of little things on my models that it would drive me bananas to get a 3D printed model that had the step sizes. With that, I just couldn't do it. But I would love to get my hands on a model, like a clean, smooth version of that model. Can't remember what company he said he got the file from. If it was from the same company that does the Hero Forge minis, or if it was someplace else. All right, we're getting there. Yeah, they're going to be 28 millimeter scale dwarfs, so they're going to be tiny, but the detail on them looks good. And I've seen some pictures of the actual models themselves, not just the renders, because the renders can make everything look good. Because you don't end up with issues from when you print them and they're so small that some of the detail doesn't come out. But I've seen pictures of the actual models and they look really good. So I'm eager to see them in person. All right, folks, we're getting there. Looking better? Got a little more cleanup to do, but I'm liking it. Yeah, Thingiverse might be where he got the stuff from. I wouldn't be surprised if in the very, very near future that game stores and game companies, manufacturers, basically start having agreements where the game stores have 3D printers and they get the files from the miniature companies. They're basically just printing the miniatures you want on demand rather than stocking them on their shelves. I think we're getting close to that, which would make sense from a point of view of game stores having to stock products. I know at least around here, the game stores that have gone out of business or that haven't done as well often end up just having tons of products sitting on their shelf because it's so hard, especially here in the Phoenix area. It seems like it's a very fickle gaming crowd, and they jump from games to games really, really quickly. Like 1 week or 1 month, the Batman miniatures game or something will be all the rage, and everybody's all buying into the Batman game. So the game store starts investing more heavily into those models, and then they place some large orders to get good stock, and then all of a sudden the game fizzles out, and they're left with thousands of dollars of product they can't move. They just sit there on the shelf. It doesn't take too many of those kinds of things to really kill a small game store that's just struggling to make ends meet. Yeah, I saw somebody commented in there that indie game companies might do that more, but the big guys may not. But I don't know, because the partnerships with local game stores is a lot of what helps make those game companies thrive. If there's not places for people to go play, it hurts the health of the game. But those places have a hard time staying in business, especially with companies like Privateer Press, where their model line is so bloated. There's so many models in that game that it's really ridiculous to expect any game store to be able to stock them all. We had one store here locally. It has since gone out of business, but it was one of the big stores in the Valley, and it actually did maintain a full stock of Privateer Press. They had every model that Privateer Press made, and that wall that they had them on, they kept putting stuff up higher and stuff up lower all the way down to the floor. Then they started putting 2 different products on each hook, and they were just continuously running out of space. And then also the expectation that players are going to go through all of that product. They ended up, when they finally closed, they had so much stuff to clearance out from their Privateer Press section. I agree with you, Painting Troll, for now. But again, I think that these companies are going to figure these things out in the near future. I just think the companies who embrace the new technology and find ways to make it work for them are probably going to be the companies that in the long run have staying power. Trying to deny that 3D printing technology is coming a long way and that customers are wanting this technology to be part of the gaming. They want to be able to have customization. Game stores want to be able to provide all the products without having to worry about the overhead. I just think it's going to happen. All right, so as we said before, you know, at some point you can just spend all day long fiddling with something and it never really truly gets better. I'm going to stop there. I think that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, it could always be a little bit better, but I'm just not going to keep messing with it and potentially making it worse. With one exception. Except the getting worse part. One exception, I'm going to touch up something I meant to. Okay. Thanks, guys. All right, so I'm going to finish now base coating the rest of the shirt with the green. Now, like I said before, I was thinking about trying a new technique on this to try to give it that vintage look, because if this was a vintage shirt, a lot of that lettering would start to be would be wearing off. You'd probably start seeing some of the t-shirt color underneath. And there's ways to get that to happen. The question we have to ask ourselves is, are we willing to risk messing up what we just did to get that worn shirt look? What do you guys say? No guts, no glory? Oh, there is one more thing I need to do on the letters. I need to see some of them, they have these like cut lines, if you can see. They cut into the letter a little bit, so it's not a solid connector. I like it. We're going to be brave today, guys. Yeah, I often prime in a light gray. And then use those scale colors, so you should be fine over gray. You can go back and watch the videos again where I did her flesh, which was over, in this case it was over a brown primer, so it was this dark that I did the skin over. So. Wow, I can't believe we're going on 3:30 here, local time. I've been streaming for almost an hour and a half, and all we've done is this. Crazy. Why do we do this hobby? Why do we drive ourselves nuts? Because it's awesome, that's why. Meanwhile, Zach is still madly painting scales one by one on his dragon. Cool. I'm eager to see how it turns out for you, Painting Troll. Where are the cut-ins here? Right, base of the U. Top and bottom of the S. Probably need 2 coats for these. Yeah, I like this color. I'm painting a U.S. Army T-shirt with a color called SS Waffen Camo, but just don't tell anybody, okay? All right, so there we go. I think that actually even looks better now. Pretty cool. All right, I'll be right back. All right, so the trick that I've seen other people do, and we're gonna test it out not on her actual shirt to start with, is that you take a little bit of the foam that you get in the like blister packs. We're gonna dip it in the paint. We're going to dab it on the paper towel, get most of it off. And then you would basically dab it on the shirt. And it kind of looks like the lettering is wearing off. What do you think? Do we go for the gusto, put it on the shirt? Let's do it. Be brave, right? No turning back now. Except the paint's dry on it. Well, I don't hate it. I definitely looks like there's some wear and tear on that shirt. Kind of went a little bit heavy on the one part of the star. I wonder if I can clean just a little section of that. Yeah. There we go. Cool. Add that to the toolkit. Yeah, I think painting troll, that's where I've seen it before, but I've also seen people use it on things like this too. Similar technique. Did the job, I think. Now, one of the questions is, let's move to the shorts, because just for time purposes, we'll come back to the shirt later. By later, I mean a different stream. I got to decide how much highlighting I want to do on that shirt, or if I just want to kind of do shading to this, because I don't want to go too many passes over that. In fact, I may not even really overglaze that back design, because that really knocked it down, and it really does kind of look like it's wearing off the shirt. So I might just shade this color, maybe just do a little highlighting on the shoulders, just a touch, but I'm gonna think about that some. All right, I have to recall which color I used. I think that was bearing blue. I see you all went silent since I did that. You don't want to, nobody wants to tell me how badly I screwed it up. I didn't want to be the one to have to tell you this, but you ruined the model. So I'm going to start off, I'm actually just going to do one or two coats of glaze over the entire jeans. I just want the ribbing shapes, the denim material. I want it all to kind of be more uniform. The lines are a little light, they stand out more than I intended. I agree. I don't think Old Worn green has a lot of contrast with its highlights and shadows. I think it's a fairly muted color with not a lot of variation. So we'll just do a few minimal highlights and do mostly shading to block out the contours. So I want to do two things with highlighting and shading here. So I want to, kind of like what we did with her knees, where we really made it a little bit lighter, show the wear. You know, if she's wearing jean shorts, there's certain places where you're going to see more wear, and it's going to be a lighter denim. And we're also going to start doing some shadows. Do I want Caspian blue? Do I want to go super dark right away? Start with Caspian. What's up, Pack Team? Do you see the beautiful painting background we have here? This was courtesy of Pack Team. He sent me these new tiles. They're really awesome. I'll catch you up in a second, Pack Team, of what we've been working on today. It's for a couple things, Painting Troll. It is nice because I rest my arm